Good questions, or even better, great questions, are the best way to work out your goals. So they help us reflect. And over the last 25 years, I've helped lots and lots of people work out their retirement planning. And part of that, the way we have always done it, is helping them work out their retirement goals. So what I'm going to talk about in today's topic are six what I think are really good questions to help you determine your retirement goals. So let's have a look. But before I do, usual disclaimer, all this is designed to be helpful and useful to you in your retirement planning, but it's not to be considered as personal advice, and you should seek out your own advice or your own research before you act on anything that we talk about here. So let's have a look at where we are in our five-step retirement planning process. And it's the same process we would suggest using for anything. One, stock take, where am I now? Second, goals, where do I want to be? And then thirdly, what is the strategy we want to use to get from A to B? And then we put it together in a plan. We put the plan, it's a map of exactly what to do, when to do it, who to do it. It's the action list, it's the project list of the stuff that has to get done. And then as we execute, which is step 5, we take notice of whether we're moving in the right direction. We adjust, review, and we get help where we need it so we can stay on track. It's a never-ending process. And as I've spoken to many people about over the years, the planning process is actually more important than the plan itself. We call most people's first plan version 1.0. And we know that that's not going to be their final plan because life changes. As one great general said, I can't remember who it was, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And the enemy of every plan is real life. There's the other saying, God laughs while we make plans. But the planning process is critical. And I've found it critical in business. I've found it critical for our clients in retirement planning because it makes you think about the future. It helps you hopefully get some smart decisions and strategies down. So let's dive in. But before we get to the 6 questions, let's talk about a couple of things. Firstly, retirement planning is very personal. You may have heard me talk about how when people say, oh, how much will I need to retire? What does the average person need? And I'm not ever really interested in averages because we're all quite unique. We're unique in our desires, what we want, how we live our life, and our capability. So those two things, what do we want and how capable we are? I've seen over the years that if people have more money, they're more likely to spend more money. If you earned good money during your workforce, you've more than likely got used to spending more money. Not everyone, but most of us get used to spending more. Someone that's earning $500,000 a year will inevitably spend more than someone that's earning $60,000 a year. Now, that's fairly natural because it comes down to this capability. Now, maybe someone could go back to earning less, but it's generally hard work from what I've seen. The other thing is it's your unique life with your own unique goals. I've watched some people retire and they want to travel the world. They want to have this big bucket list they've got to tick off. And a lot of that takes a lot of money. And other people that are just want to settle down into their local life. They want to play golf once or twice a week or just chill. Yeah. And there's no right answer. There's nothing that determines what you should do. You should work out, in my opinion, what is going to give you satisfaction in retirement, what's going to make you happy, what's going to give you purpose. And we've talked about that in some of the episodes. And that's you. Yeah, it's based on your preferences, your priorities, your goals. And I should point out, if you're a couple, as many of you are, you've got to work this out together. Because if you get misaligned expectations here, it's going to make retirement challenging. If you haven't been at home with your spouse 7 days a week ever, which is most people, all of a sudden, that's gonna change dynamics. So it's something that I would always encourage you to plan together to work out both your joint plan, but also your individual plans, and make sure there's enough of an overlap, of course. So, and then, that your own preferences combined with your own financial position and capability, once again, is critical. As I said, if you've got more resources, you tend to going to do more, but not necessarily. That's where I get back to, you'll read about, you'll hear about rules of thumb when it comes to retirement. And they can be useful, but I find them less than useful for a lot of the times. And they're no substitute for personal planning. Now, often people don't know how to do personal planning, which is the whole reason we exist, or they get caught up in, say, just the investment process, and everyone's trying to tell them how to invest, but without necessarily considering how it fits into their retirement plan. So the orders of our 5 steps are very specific. The investing bit is part of the strategy bit, but we only look at strategy after we've looked at where we currently are and where we want to get to. So let's have a look at these questions. And but before I do, just quickly why it's so important. And as I said, it makes us think. The reason I believe planning works in anything, and particularly if you're organized and you execute, some people will substitute planning for daydreaming and wishing and hoping, which I don't think is useful, but genuine planning, the way we define it, which is where there's some goals and then you come up with some strategy, then you execute the strategy, is absolutely critical. But it's critical for a couple of reasons. The first is it just makes you think about what you want and how you'd like to live your life during retirement. Think about the most simple travel plan. It starts with where am I now? And where do I want to go to? And then it's how do I want to get there? Am I driving? Am I catching a plane? And that's the simple strategy. When am I going to go? What time am I going to leave? All that gets down to tactics. And it's the same with this type of stuff as well. Now, the thing that distinguishes a financial plan, a financial retirement plan from just some retirement goals is, and I've just spotted a typo there. Excuse me for my typo on the heading, for those of you that are watching this. But the thing that distinguishes a financial plan as opposed to just a bunch of goals is a financial plan is all about numbers and cash flow and income. So doing this planning helps you work out how much you're going to need, both in regular income and lump sums. And that then drives how much capital you're going to need. So if you need 100 grand a year compared to someone that needs 50 grand a year, you're going to need more capital. There's other factors that affect it. We're going to come through those through the questions. But the whole process here gets you to consciously work through the inevitable trade-offs of retirement planning. So let's have a look at the questions. Now, these questions I've been asking people for approaching 30 years, 28 years, I think. And for the last 24 of that, I've been pretty consistent with the way we ask questions. We've evolved it because we've worked out these questions help people think about what they want and then quantify what they want. And that helps us work out what they're on track for and what strategies they might want to change or add to get to their goals, depending on where they're at and how close they are to retirement. But the first question is nice and simple, which is just, if you were retired right now, how much would you need coming each year to pay for a nice life? Now, we do that in context quite deliberately. If you were retired right now, so for a lot of you, you might still have kids at home, you might still have a mortgage. So you want to get rid of those things. You're going to allow for those in your planning. But for now, we just want to think about how much you need coming each year for a nice life. And the responses I get to this are always really interesting. One of the most common ones is, oh, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that. And we have a chuckle because we go, this is the $1 million question. This is the question that will determine how much you need. And it's not that hard because when people say that, they go, oh, how do I work that out? And we all address all of this in our How Much workshop and our How Much calculator, where we take you through these questions and we get you to fill in bits in the calculator to actually work out the capital you're going to require. So that process is quite useful. But it makes you think about what you want. And I'm going to do deeper dives into some of these, but our simplest assumption here is we start with, what are you spending now? Then we take away what's going to stop in retirement. If your kid's grown up, that might be taking away school fees or uni fees. If your mortgage is going to be paid out, we'll take away the mortgages. If you're paying a fortune in public transport to get to work, we'll take that out. And then we'll add back what you need for a good life. If you're going to join a country club, you add the membership there. If you're going to travel, you're going to add that in, but we'll come to that separately as well. So a good starting point is kind of what you're spending now. But then we always ask the follow-up question. And by the way, just in terms of every now and then someone will ask here, what's normal, Rob? And I'll go, I don't believe there's such a thing as normal, and averages are dumb numbers because it takes the highs and the low. And like I said, you're not average. You've got your own unique things you want to do and your own unique capability. So I never really answer that, but I do say I've asked this question to thousands of people, both individually and collectively in webinars and seminars over the years. And the answers I get vary from a low of about 30 to 40,000 a year to a high of 600,000 a year. Now, I assume at some stage I might get one that's higher than that, but that just tends to be our market, which is what I call everyday good high income earners that have done well and looking to do well. So yeah, that's the range. I would note that the average for our clients, and we have a practice based in Noosa of people that have generally worked and earned good incomes. So that amount tends to be six figures, and that can range from anything from 80,000 to 300,000 to higher as well. Although there's no right number, we always start by saying there's no judgment with us, and the same with everything we do online with Runway to Retirement here. There's no judgment. It's just you working out what that number is for you. No comparing it to others as well. Someone might need less, someone might need more. It doesn't matter. What do you need to live a nice life? And then we'll go to question number 2, which is, does that include all the really nice stuff, or do you need to add some extra? Because I find people often too conservative with the first question. They won't include the stuff they really, really would like. Now, you're going to have to do a capability adjustment here depending on what you've got, but it's good to get it all down. So, well, if things are really, really going well, if you've got enough, what is the extra really nice stuff? So inevitably, this is about a handful of things. Travel is probably the big one. So sometimes they'll say, oh, if we had some more, we'd probably travel. So we might add, let me just pick a really simple case. I'm going to do a couple here who decided, let's say they were earning good money before retirement, but let's say they answered question 1. They said, oh, we need, let's say 100 grand a year. Good. And then we go, does that include all the really nice stuff? Or do you need to add some extra? Let's say, well, it would be nice to have a bit more for travel. How much? Let's add 20 to 30,000 a year. Now, whether we're adding that for their whole life or the first 10 to 20 years of retirement, we dive into deeper. And in our How Much workshop, we've got the ability to calculate different phases of retirement in terms of the travel budgets that you might aspire to. So travel's one of the things there. The other stuff might be just spoiling grandkids. It might be, I would really like to join a certain golf club, tennis club, whatever it is. And it's going to cost 25 grand a year. Or I'd like to help my grandkids, my kids be able to afford private school for their kids, my grandkids. So I'd like to add 20,000 there. Whatever it is, it's your questions. It's what would the nice stuff be? And even if you cross this off later, if you work out you don't have enough, at least you know if you work that extra few years and you get enough, is this worth that trade-off for working through a few extra years? Because you're going to hear me talk about a lot in this episode. There's a lot of trade-offs. There's a lot of things that we've got to make decisions about what we have in and what we have out of our base assumptions. So the third question, and we now move towards lump sum type of needs or one-off needs. What are you going to need in lump sums for things? And I talk here, the prompts always says cars, caravans, boats, yachts, Harleys, that type of thing. So this is stuff you might want to buy to live a good life. It might be a jet ski, it might be a caravan. It could be anything. It doesn't matter what it is. It might be renovating your house. It might be, it might be a new car. But what are the lump sums? Because you'll need to budget for those and include that in the lump sums you're going to need for retirement. So there's no rights and wrongs about what things. There's always the discussion or the calculations around your capability. We absolutely believe in realistic retirement financial planning, not pie in the sky. Yeah, if I win the lotto, then I'd buy this. This is about what you're going to be able to do with what you've built, etc. So what are the things? And once again, we're going to get to trade-offs and priorities here as well. Question 4, what will you need in lump sums for people or causes, people you care about, or charities or causes that you want to make a difference to? And this is very personal. There's no right answer here. You don't have to give money to causes. You don't have to help your kids into stuff, but some people want to either help their kids through uni, help their kids with a house deposit. Once again, no judgment, no right or wrong. What do you want? What do you and your spouse want? What are the things you'd like to do? And then you got those trade-offs. So let's say, look, we'd really love to help our kids with a house deposit. A lot of the boomers generation and Gen X have a bit of property guilt. And probably fair enough in some ways too. Now, we did work hard. We did buy property. It did seem expensive at the time. We did pay interest rates of anything up to 17%, but it does feel like it's harder for our kids in terms of the prices. So there's a lot of guilt. I know personally, I have a plan. I've already helped one of our kids into a home. The others, one of them's lined up. I'm about to help them with a little contribution towards their deposit. And that's available for all our kids because it's important to us to help them get into a property. By the way, they can't get into it if you're only providing partial help, unless they're working hard, got a job and save some of their own money. They won't be able to take advantage of it. So my biggest thing with all of this stuff with helping kids, grandkids, is trying not to erode any work ethic or create any entitlement. And yeah, I heard a great definition of entitlement the other day. I'm trying to remember who it was from, but yeah, there's picture goal setting, and you say, well, here I am now. Here's my goals. If you take responsibility from getting from where you are to your goals, that's an awesome thing. That's motivation. That's work ethic. If you expect society to get you there without your contribution, or if you expect your parents to get you there, that's entitlement. I thought that was a great definition of entitlement. And deep down, we're all trying to avoid, mostly, our kids, grandkids becoming entitled because they think we've got all this money. And yeah, for most, it's not a thing. So this is very personal, and yeah, it could be money for education, money for houses. It might be you want to. I've seen everything. Yeah, there's someone wanted to help a school friend who'd been through a couple of real misfortunes, and they wanted to help them get back in the market, and they'd done really well. So yeah, this is whatever you want. Now, it might be right at retirement. It might be later on, and I'm going to talk about one of the questions to talk about legacy as well, which I will do right now, which is, what does your legacy planning look like? So your legacy is just what you'll leave behind when you go. So when it comes to money, it's what are your assets? So do you plan? And I tell people, let me talk about three broad legacy planning directions. One is you want to continue to build your wealth to leave on money to your descendants, your kids, your grandkids, and others. One is you want to preserve the capital. So if you retire with $2 million, you want that to keep up to date with inflation. And lastly, you're happy to consume your capital and either spend it all or leave a certain amount to the kids. Now, that might be the most common answer I get from hardworking people that don't have way more than they need, is they're happy to leave the house and whatever's left to the kids. That's not to say that's the right answer. The right answer is whatever's right for you. Some people might decide they want to leave $1 million to each of their kids. I've heard people talk about a property to each of their kids. No judgment, no what's right, no what's wrong. It's what does your legacy planning look like in a perfect world? Now, we're going to have a trade-off. So in other words, let's say someone said, well, I'd like to leave $1 million to each of my kids. My next question would be, are you going to be happy to work an extra? And we would calculate this. So you can get there, but you're going to have to work an extra 2, might be 3, might be 4 years. Are you happy to do that? And if someone goes, yeah, I am, I know that's a genuine goal. If they go, oh, I'm not so sure, then we've got some trade-off decisions. They could spend less in retirement. They could work longer. They could invest more aggressively. Doesn't always work. But these are all the trade-offs, so they could adjust that legacy planning as well. And then question 6, and this is a catch-all question, but is, what other goals do you have in retirement that might cost you money? And this could be anything. And I'm trying to think of some examples we've had, but it might be some medical goals, someone that knew they needed to I don't know, let's say I'm going to take a silly example here, but yeah, let's say they wanted to get stem cell injections for their dodgy hips and knees, and they were going to fly to Panama to get the ones you can't get in Australia. Not recommending anything, not a doctor. But yeah, they might have said, I want 100,000 to do that sort of medical intervention. It might be that they want to spend a year in Tuscany, yeah, learning how to do beautiful Italian cooking or whatever. That might not have come up in their other goals. It might be that they want to buy a holiday house. So I had one client that said, yeah, well, what if things are really on track? We would love to have a home in Canada. And they were skiers. They went skiing once a year. We put that in their plan. We showed that they could afford it, and they bought that the next year as an investment that they use. Still got it to this day, but it came about because of this question: what other goals do you have? What's on your wish list? What's on your bucket list that you'll have in retirement that'll cost you money? Now, we know not all of those things may be possible, but for lots of people, they can actually do more or have more than they think. Yeah, they're cautious, so they bring down their expectations about what they might be able to spend because they haven't really done the planning. And this is why it's so important to do the planning. When we do the planning, we can work out the maths, and as I said, our how much workshop, and how much calculator, which you can find online. We're just about to put the price up. So yeah, it's highly worthwhile exercise to go through because it makes you think about these trade-offs. It makes you think about the dollars around retirement planning. So in summing up, good questions I think are so critical in helping you think about and plan your retirement. Both just helping you think about what you want life to look like. What are the things that make your life good? What are the things that you would like to do more of in retirement? What are the things you would like to start doing in retirement that you're not doing now? What are the things you want to do less of? What are the things you want to stop doing? All these things will then translate into numbers. Yeah. And it helps us, we get the numbers down, and that helps us work out what we'll need. You may need some help with that through the personal financial advice if you're more comfortable with finding an advisor who does what I call real financial planning. Hit us up on our website and our Find an Advisor. We can link you up to an advisor that does this. If you're comfortable continuing to learn on your own, or you're comfortable doing it on your own, our How Much calculator uses the same techniques that we use live with our clients that we charge thousands for to help you work out your own plans and numbers as well. So doing this helps you get to the point where you're working through the inevitable trade-offs. Now, there's always a trade-off. It can be a positive or a negative. And I'll finish with a little story, but often we'll do a plan for people and we work out that they could say retire at 55, but then they'll go, well, I don't want to retire at 65. I'm really happy to work through to 65. So we update the numbers and we go, well, you're going to have more than you need in 65 based on your current goals. So there's a couple of things possible here as far as the trade-offs go. So one of them is you can spend more in retirement. You could help your kids more. You could leave a stronger legacy for your kids. They're the trade-offs. They're positive trade-offs because you got more than you think. But often we'll have negative trade-offs where when people put down all the things they want, they can't quite get there. So their options are, they might look at things like a house downgrade. They might work for a bit longer. They might work part-time. They might reduce their legacy goals and trust that their kids will be okay on their own. And keep in mind, if you're in your 50s, early 60s now, your kids are going to be 20 to 30 years younger than you on average. So by the time you hit your 80s and 90s, which is about where life expectancy is, they're going to be in their 60s and 70s. So if they haven't made their way in life, look, maybe you might want to leave them some money to help them on their way, but you're going to hope they've made it by then. And these are all trade-offs, no judgment, no what's good, no what's bad, just what works for you. So in the next couple of episodes, I'm going to dive deeper into some of these. But if you'd like to get started looking at your stuff, jump on the website and either get some help by getting an introduction to an advisor who can help you work through this. I know at this time of year, I'm recording this on the 6th of January. So a lot of you will be in kind of New Year's resolutions or New Year's goal planning mode. So there's a couple of paths here. We can help you find a good advisor that shares our beliefs, philosophies, and values, or you can jump on and start to do some work. And there's a lot more coming in the coming months as we roll this out. Until we speak next time, Rob McGregor signing